Bing bongy bong, bing bongy bong. This is Joe, the bearded historian. He'll tell you an interesting story. Be careful of his soldiers, they can be brats. This is Angel, she's an entity. She'll cause chaos and plant her hands at you. This is Sue, she likes spirits, not the alcohol. She's the reason this channel exists. This is David, he likes fire trucks. He's here occasionally. Bing bongy bong, bing bongy bong, bing bongy bong. We preserve his story. Okay, so this is Mr. Thorkin's channel. As you can see, it's related to travel. And I catch a lot of his live. I haven't catched a live in a while. He's got some shorts. I have to catch up on videos because apparently I am behind on his, and I did not realize that, so I do apologize, Thorkin. I will get caught up. And I'm going to put you in a playlist right now here. Let's see, which one should we run? We should run 25 is the biggest? Oh, no, wait. Well, that's shorts. We don't want to do that. We'll do this one. All right. We'll get caught up. Okay. Well, that's running. So he does a lot of travel. Looks like he posts about once a month. So if you want to see other places, like, share, comment, check him out, and enjoy Joe rambling about guns and the creation of them. Have a good day. All right. I am running late. And my only excuse is that I kind of thought I already did this. I got distracted earlier in the day with a phone call from my stepmother. Complications in the family relations. Whole nother story. I'm not going to get into. My relationship with my parents is complicated. So complicated. Very complicated. Anyway, on to more positive things. Today's video, Joe's going to talk about one of the inventors of the gun, or of a gun, I guess I should say, Mr. Samuel Colt. And before that, we're going to have a race with horses, because cowboys use guns. Sure, let's go with that. Are you ready? Here we go. Shout out time. Here's a shout out just for you. You support me, so I'll support you. This shout out is for our friends. Let's see who it is today. Are you ready? Okay, there we go. We've got April. We've got MJ. We've got Peach. There's my Linda. South Dakota. There's Tom. Phoenix. Betty. Adventure. Blistering. Generations. Jerry. Resin. 5 can. A-Space. Vaughn. J-Girl. Reverend, Louisiana, Reggie, Jocelyn, Josie, Stony. I swear I thought I took you out of here because you already read one. Cruising is fun. A&M, there's Thorkin. It's going to be Thorkin. Didn't I just do Thorkin? Alright, peoples. It's late, but the bearded historian has finally decided what he wants to do. I'll sort out pictures tomorrow. What have we decided, bearded historian?
Well, we're going to be talking about a fellow who was an inventor, an industrialist, and businessman who would get a patent for one of the first repeating handguns. And his invention would turn out not only to be profitable but popular. Samuel Colt. And the date actually ties into the founding patent that he got. Interestingly enough, he actually got a patent first in England. But little bits of the details. He didn't live very long. He died at the age of 47. He had quite a family tree in the business. His first two business ventures were producing firearms at the Patterson, New Jersey, making underwater mines, and his business would expand rapidly after 1847, when a group known as the Texas Rangers ordered 1,000 revolvers during the American War with Mexico. And then in the American Civil War, his factory in Hartford supplied firearms to both the North and the South. Later, his firearms were used widely during the settling of the western frontier. When Colt would die in 1862, he was one of the wealthiest men in the United States. Understandable, we like our guns. Now, Colt manufacturing methods were at the forefront of the Industrial Revolution. His use of the interchangeable parts helped him become one of the first to make efficient use of the assembly line manufacturing process. Moreover, his innovative use of art, celebrity endorsements, and corporate gifts to promote his wares made him a pioneer in advertising, product placement, and mass marketing. I mean, think about all those old Western movies.
Right.
Everybody had a Colt. Well, this fellow was born in Hartford, Connecticut, the son of Christopher Colt, a farmer who had moved his family to the city after he became a businessman, and Sarah. His maternal grandfather, Major John Caldwell, had been an officer in the Continental Army, and one of Colt's earliest possessions was John's flintlock pistol. Well, Colt's mother died from tuberculosis when Colt was 6 years old, and his father married Oliver Sargent 2 years later. Colt had 3 sisters. One of them died during her childhood. His oldest sister, Margaret, died of tuberculosis at age 19, and the other, Sarah Ann, later died by suicide. One brother, James, became a lawyer. Another, Christopher, was a textile merchant. A third brother, John C. Colt, a man of many occupations, was convicted of an 1841 murder and died by suicide on the day he was to be executed. Well, at age 11, Colt was indentured to a farmer in Glastonbury, where he did chores and attended school. Here he was introduced to the Compendium of Knowledge, a scientific encyclopedia that he preferred to read rather than his Bible studies. Its articles about Robert Fulton and the gunpowder articles motivated Colt throughout his life. He discovered that other inventors in the compendium had accomplished feats that were once deemed impossible, and he wanted to do the same. Later, after hearing soldiers talk about the success of the double-barreled rifle and the impossibility of a gun that could shoot 5 or 6 times without reloading, Colt decided he would create the impossible gun. Well, in 1829, at the age of 15, Colt began working in his father's textile plant in Ware, Massachusetts, where he had access to tools, materials, and the factory workers' expertise. Using what he learned from the compendium, Samuel built a homemade galvanic cell and advertised that it was the 4th of July event that year that he would explode a raft on the Ware Pond using underwater explosives. Although the raft was missed, his explosion was still impressive. Sent to boarding school, he amused the classmates with pyrotechnics. In 1830, a 4th of July accident caused a fire that ended his schooling, and his father sent him away to learn the seaman's trade. On a voyage to Calcutta aboard the brig Corvo, Colt had an idea for a type of revolver inspired by capstans and windlasses, which have a cachet and pawl mechanism. He would later say gave him the idea for his revolver designs. On the Corvo, Colt made a wood model of a pepper box revolver out of scrap wood. It differed from other pepper box revolvers at the time, and it allowed a shooter to rotate the cylinder by the action of cocking the hammer with an attached pawl, turning the cylinder, which then locked firmly in the alignment with one of the barrels by a bolt, a great improvement over the earlier designs which required rotating the barrels by hand and hoping for the proper indexing and alignment. Well, when Colt returned to the United States in 1832, he resumed working for his father, who finalized the production of 2 guns, a rifle and a pistol. The first completed pistol exploded when it was fired, but the rifle performed well. His father would not finalize any further development, so Samuel needed to find a way to pay for the development of his ideas. He had learned about nitrous oxide, aka laughing gas, from the chemist at his father's textile plant, so he took a portable laboratory on tour and earned a living performing laughing gas demonstrations across the United States and Canada, calling himself the celebrated Dr. Colt of New York, London, and Calcutta. Colt thought of himself as a man of science and believed if he could enlighten people about a new idea like nitrous oxide, he could turn making people more receptive to his new idea, revolving a revolver. Now he started his lectures on street corners, and workers soon made its way up the lecture circuit in halls and museums. As ticket sales declined, Colt realized that serious museum lectures were not what people wanted to pay for.
No.
It was dramatic stories of salvation and redemption the public craved. While visiting his brother John in Cincinnati, he partnered with the sculptor Hiram Powers for his demonstrations with a theme based on the Divine Comedy. Powers made detailed wax sculptures and paintings based on demons, centaurs, and mummies from Dante's work. Colt constructed fireworks for the finale of the show, which was a success. According to Colt historian Robert Lawrence Wilson, the lectures launched Colt's celebrated career as a pioneer Madison Avenue style pitchman. His public speaking skills were so prized that he was thought to be a doctor and was pressed into service to cure an apparent cholera epidemic aboard a riverboat by giving stricken passengers a dose of nitrous oxide. That's a good way to fix a problem. Don't think it works very well.
I don't think that's how that works.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not a doctor.
No.
Neither is he, though.
No, neither was he. Now, having saved some money and still wanting to be considered an inventor as opposed to a medicine man, Colt made arrangements to begin building guns using proper gunsmiths from Baltimore, Maryland. He abandoned the idea of a multiple-barreled revolver and opted for a single fixed barrel design with a rotating cylinder. The action of the hammer would align with the cylinder bores with a single barrel. He sought the counsel of his friend of his father, Henry Levitt Ellsworth, who loaned him $300 and advised him to perfect a prototype before applying for a patent. Colt hired a gunsmith by the name of John Pearson to build his revolver. Over the next few years, Colt and Pearson argued about the money, but the design improved, and by 1835, Colt was ready to apply for his U.S. patent. Ellsworth was now the superintendent of the U.S. Patent Office and advised Colt to file for foreign patents first, as a prior U.S. patent would keep Colt from filing the patent in the United Kingdom. In August of 1835, Colt left for England and France to secure the foreign patents. Well, Colt's trip to the UK had been preceded by a similar visit by Elisha Collier, a Bostonian who had patented a revolving flintlock there and achieved great popularity. Now, despite the reluctance of English officials to issue a patent to Colt, no fault could be found with his gun, and he was issued the first patent, number 6909. And upon his return to America, he applied for his first U.S. patent of a revolving gun. He was granted the patent on February 25th, 1836, later numbered 9430X. The instrument and patent number 1304, dated August 29th, 1836, protected the basic principles of the revolving, breech loading, folding trigger firearm named the Colt Patterson. With a loan from his cousin, Dudley Selden, and letters of recommendations from Ellsworth, Colt formed a corporation of venture capitalists in 1836 to bring his idea to market, and with the help of the political connections from these venture capitalists, The Patent Arms Manufacturing Company of Paterson, New Jersey was chartered in New Jersey legislature on March the 5th, 1836. Colt was given a royalty for every gun sold in exchange for his share of patent rights, and it stipulated that rights would be returned to Colt if the company disbanded. So he kind of made a nice knot of it, made sure everything flowed back to him. Smart guy. Now, Colt never claimed to have invented the revolver. His design was more of a practical adaptation of Collier's early revolving flintlock, incorporating a locking bolt to keep the cylinder aligned with the barrel. The invention of the percussion cap made ignition more reliable, faster, and safer than the older flintlock design.
Interesting.
Now, this is where I get to have some fun, because I've looked at, things like muzzle loading and stuff like that. The earlier rifles and stuff, back then there was, multiple steps that you had to do each time you wanted to shoot a rifle. You had your cap, you had the powder, you had the bullet, you had to tamp it down, you had to be careful with when you were tamping, you also had to keep the gun clean. There was a lot of steps. I mean, it was not easy doing this. I can't imagine it was any easier doing this in the middle of being shot at during, the Revolutionary War or anything. But, here was an idea to have a gun that ran with, simple bullets. You had the firing pin and everything right there. And so, yeah, it speeded up the process of firing that much quicker. It was beautiful to that event. Now, Colt's great contribution was the use of the interchangeable parts. Knowing that some gun parts were made by machine, he envisioned all the parts of every Colt gun could be interchangeable and made by machine, so it could be assembled later by hand. His goal was an assembly line. This is shown in an 1836 letter that Colt wrote to his father, in which he said, "The first workman would receive 2 or 3 of the most important parts, and would affix these and pass them on to the next, who would add a part and pass the growing article on to another, who would do the same, and so on until the complete arm is put together." Colt's U.S. revolver patent gave him a monopoly on the revolver manufacture until 1857. His was the first practical revolver, and the first practical repeating firearm, thanks to the progress made in percussion technology. No longer a mere novelty weapon, the revolver became an industrial and cultural legacy, as well as a contribution to the development of the war technology, ironically signifying the name of one of his company's later innovations, the Peacemaker. Now, although by the end of 1837 the arms company had made more than 1,000 weapons, there had been no sales. After the Panic of 1837, the company's underwriters were reluctant to fund more new machinery that Colt needed to make interchangeable parts, so he went on the road to raise money. Demonstrating the gun to people in general stores did not generate the sales volume he needed, so with another loan from his cousin Selden, he went to D.C. and demonstrated it to President Andrew Jackson. Jackson approved the gun and wrote Colt a note saying so. With the letter, Colt pushed the bill through Congress, endorsing a demonstration for the military, but failed to obtain an appropriation for military purchase of the weapon. A promising order from the state of South Carolina for 50 to 75 pistols was canceled when the company did not produce them quickly enough. Now, the provisions of the Militia Act of 1808 were a constant problem for Colt, as they required that any arms purchased by a state militia had to be in current service with the United States military. This prevented state militias from allocating funds for the purchase of experimental weapons or foreign weapons. Colt undermined his own company With his reckless spending, Selden often chastised him for using corporate funds to buy expensive wardrobes or to give lavish gifts to potential clients. Selden twice prohibited Colt from using company money for liquor and fancy dinners. Colt thought getting potential customers inebriated would generate more sales. Well, why not? You're loaded. You signed for it.
You're loaded. Here's a gun.
Yeah, don't shoot me, The company was given a brief reprieve when the war against the Seminoles in Florida, which provided the first sale of Colt's revolvers and his new revolving rifles. The soldiers of Florida praised the new weapon, but the unusual hammerless design, 60 years ahead of its time, made it difficult to train men who were used to exposed hammer guns. Many curious soldiers took the locks apart, resulting in broken parts, stripped screw heads, and inoperable guns. Oh, we broke it by playing with it. Oops.
This is why
yeah.
you should be careful you take things apart.
Exactly. Colt soon reworked the design to leave the firing hammer exposed, but problems continued. In late 1843, after the loss of payment from the Florida Pistols, the Patterson plant closed and the public auction was held in New York City to sell the company's most liquid assets. Well, Colt did not refrain long from his manufacturing, and it turned to selling underwater electrical detonators and waterproof cable for his own invention. Soon after the failure of the Patent Arts Manufacturing Company, he teamed with Samuel Morse to lobby the U.S. government for funds. Colt's waterproof cable, made from tar-coated copper, proved valuable when Morse ran telegraph lines under lakes, rivers, and bays, and made attempts to lay a telegraph line under the Atlantic Ocean. Moore used a battery from one of Colt's mines to transmit a telegraph message from Manhattan's Government Island when his own battery was too weak to send the signal. As tensions with the British grew towards the end of 1841, Colt demonstrated his underwater mines to the U.S. government, prompted Congress to appropriate funds to his project. In 1842, he used one of the devices to destroy a moving vessel. To the satisfaction of the United States Navy and President John Tyler, however, opposition from John Quincy Adams, who was serving as a U.S. representative for Massachusetts' 8th Congressional District, scuttled the project as not fair and honest warfare.
How dare he?
Calling the Colt mine an unchristian contraption.
Because all war thingies are unchristian, aren't they?
Well, they're very Christian. You're going to see the Lord shortly. Now, after the setback, Colt turned his attention to perfecting tinfoil cartridges he had originally designed to use in his revolvers. The standard at the time was to have powder and ball contained in a paper or skin envelope or cartridge for ease of loading. However, if the paper got wet, the powder would be ruined. Colt tried alternative methods such as rubber cement, finally deciding on a thin type of foil. In 1841, he made samples of these cartridges for the Army. During tests of the foil cartridges, 25 rounds were shot from a musket without cleaning. When the breech plug was removed from the barrel, no fouling from the tin foil was evident. The reception was lukewarm, but the Army purchased a few thousand rounds for further testing. In 1843, the Army gave Colt an order for 200,000 of these tinfoil cartridges, packed 10 to a box for use in the muskets. With the money made from the cartridges, Colt resumed business with Morse for the ideas other than detonating mines. Colt concentrated on manufacturing his waterproof telegraph cable, believing the business would prosper. In tandem with Morse's invention, he began promoting the telegraph companies to create a greater market for his cable, for which he would be paid $50 per mile. Colt tried to use this revenue to resurrect the Patent Arms Manufacturing Company, but could not secure funds from other investors or even his own family.
At this point, I can kind of understand what. But he does seem to like he successes, he fails. He succeeds, he fails.
Yeah. And this left Colt time to improve his earlier revolver design and have a prototype for his new and improved revolver built by a gunsmith in New York. This time, the new revolver had a stationary trigger and a larger caliber. Colt submitted a single prototype to the War Department as a holster revolver. Now, Captain Samuel Walker of the Texas Rangers had acquired some of the first Colt revolvers produced during the Seminole War, and he saw firsthand their effective use with the 15-man unit defeated a larger force of 70 Comanches in Texas. Walker wanted to order Colt revolvers for use by the Rangers in the Mexican-American War and traveled to New York City in search of Colt. On January 4th, 1847, he met Colt in a gunsmith shop and ordered 1,000 revolvers. Walker asked for a few changes. The new revolvers would have to hold 6 shots instead of 5, have enough power to kill either a human or a horse with a single shot, and be quicker to reload. This large order allowed Colt to establish a new firearm business. He hired Eli Whitney III, who was established in the arms business at the Whitney Armory, to make the guns. Colt used his prototype and Walker's improvements as the basis for the new design, and from the new design, known as the Colt Walker, Whitney produced the first 1,000-piece order. The company then received an order for 1,000 more. Colt shared his profits at $10 a pistol for both orders. And shortly after that, the Colt name was underway, and
They finally take off.
yep, Colt was into the business of firearms. But this has been the Bearded Historian. Folks, I'm presently dealing with one eye patched, but we will see you folks next week, and you have a good one.
Do we wanna?
Probably should.
Why?
Because they like hearing about me.
Do they?
Some days.
It's gonna be March.
Either that or they're going to go,
Probably.
probably.
We're at almost 24 minutes.
Cool. I got to blow my nose.